The movie opens with a 911 call from Cora, a horrified woman mentioning that she can't get out and someone could be in her house. At the same time, we see Deputy Allison Bray entering Cora's house. The phone operator calms her and informs the woman that the deputies are on their way. Allison looks around the house and finds everything wrecked with salt everywhere. She then walks past the hall where she sees blood and small bones. Then, she enters the living room and finds more blood on the floor and the couch as well. Then, Cora is taken into police custody, and we see her sitting in the prison visiting area with her face covered in blood. Deputy Moya briefs Allison that they found her sitting in the center of the room, but they still haven't been able to identify her, and the blood on her face isn't hers. After hearing this, Allison informs him that her name is Cora Lowen. Allison knows Cora because she was involved in the investigation of Cora's missing son, Noah, 7 years ago, and also because Cora is Allison's younger sister. Allison checks up on Cora and asks her some questions about what happened and whose blood is on her face. Meanwhile, Cora, who is still in a state of shock, can't answer properly. Cora explains that she just wanted to get someone back because someone told her they could get said person back. Allison inquires who told her that, but Cora still keeps babbling about wanting someone back. Allison asks if she's referring to Noah, because he disappeared 7 years ago. The scene flashes back to 7 years ago, when Cora was living with her boyfriend, Wyatt. Cora is lying on the couch, high with her deadbeat boyfriend. She hears a knock on their door. She starts panicking and immediately hides all the while trying to wake Wyatt up, but he is too high to even move. Then, she fixes her hair to open the door, only to see police alongside Allison. They inform Cora that they are doing a welfare checkup and question if she knows her son's whereabouts. Cora gets offended by this question, so Allison asks her if she can check inside. Cora looks for Noah, but to her surprise, she doesn't find him inside the house. After this, the police bring in a search group to look for Noah, but all they find is Noah's right shoe in the woods. A few years after losing her son, Cora abandons her days and joins support group meetings of people who have lost their children. One day, the speaker of the meetings, Abel, talks about how proud he is of the people who joined the group and thanks them for letting him talk about the loss of his daughter, Beverly. Afterward, Cora decides to share her experience for the first time. She reveals that today is Noah's birthday if he was still alive. She shares that she only joined this group to heal and to move on, but it's not working, and she still feels miserable even after being sober for years. Then, she heads out of the meeting and runs into Allison. Allison tries to check up on her politely, but Cora tells her to skip the formality. Then, Allison inquires how she's living in their mom's old house all alone. Cora tells her that it gets lonely, and she often sleeps in Noah's room, one that their mother made for him. Later that night, Allison wakes up her girlfriend and tells her to leave so she can continue to work on her secret investigation regarding Noah. Back in the present, Allison becomes impatient inside the police station and begs Cora to shed some light on her situation. She asks her to reveal everything she knows so she can help her. Cora finally speaks up and discloses that she met a man. This is when the scene goes back to a few weeks in the past, in the bowling alley where Cora works as a waitress. She takes an order from a man, and it turns out to be Abel, the speaker from her support group. Abel orders a meatloaf burger with some water. Cora gives the order and joins Abel. They both catch up and talk about their lives. During their conversation, Abel sees a clownfish pin on Cora's shirt and shares a conspiracy theory about the Finding Nemo movie. A few days later, Abel visits Cora's house and informs her that the group has been worried about her absence from the meeting. He also offers his help. Cora rejects the offer and discloses that she is getting tired of the group. She wants to quit because it's not working for her. After seeing that Cora cannot be convinced in any way, Abel asks her how badly she wants to heal. Cora is confused and demands an explanation, so Abel reveals that he can fix her problem and get her son back from the dead. Cora is shocked to hear this and asks how that's even possible. She wonders if he is going to do some metaphysical thing, or a seance for the departed. Abel tells her that it's something like that. However, Cora makes excuses to reject Abel's offer, but he insists that he is giving her a chance to fix her mistake. Cora tells him to leave. On his way out, Abel reveals that he had lost his daughter too, but he got her back. He tells her that his daughter, Beverly, is alive and well. This only makes Cora more furious, so she pushes him out of her house. Back in the present, Allison further interrogates Cora and asks her what Abel meant when he said his daughter was alive. Cora reveals that Abel's daughter is alive because he brought her back from the afterlife, and now she's living well in some rich area of Boston. After hearing this, Allison becomes more concerned for Cora because she was part of the investigation of Abel's daughter too. She reveals that Abel's daughter was found deceased when the police pulled her out of the water. The police county even found her kidnapper, who confessed to taking her life, so there's no way Abel's daughter is alive. However, Cora asks her to search for Beverly in their computer systems because she is alive, and she changed her last name. The movie shifts back to a few nights before the crime. We see Cora giving some serious thought to Abel's proposal. Then, she approaches him after his group meeting and asks him to elaborate on how he got her daughter back. He tells her that after his daughter's departure, a lady approached him out of nowhere. She told him everything about how to bring her back from the dead, and it worked. He finally reveals that it's a ritual. Cora finds it suspicious, but believes him eventually. He guides Cora to get some stuff for the ritual. She cleans her house, cuts off all telephone devices, and buys scrubbing brushes, constraining chains, pine soap, and a lot of salt. Afterward, she goes upstairs to Noah's room and reminisces the times when she would play with her son and call him Mr. Magoo. Meanwhile, Allison pays a visit to Wyatt, Cora's junkie ex-boyfriend. She hands him a court order that prevents Wyatt from going near Cora within 100 yards. After this, Allison walks away while Wyatt gets pissed off and tries to humiliate her for failing to find Noah. Back at Cora's house, she begins the ritual with Abel. The first step for this is purification, so Abel checks if Cora brought all the right stuff from the list he gave her. Then, Abel asks her how committed she is to this ritual, but Cora still jokes about it, which infuriates Abel. He gets mad at her and demands she be fully serious, because the ritual should not be taken lightly. Then, he tells Cora to bathe in salt-soaked water, because it will absorb all the negative energy, resulting in her body being fully cleansed from the inside and outside. Cora follows his instructions, and after cleansing herself, she asks Abel the reason for his sadness, even after getting his daughter back. Abel shamefully reveals that he hasn't actually seen his daughter. Cora is shocked to hear this and thinks that Abel was lying to her from the start, but he also mentions that his daughter is safe and alive, living with her mother. He reveals that he just has to take care of some stuff, and then he will visit her. The next part of the ritual begins, and it is called quickening. Abel makes a ring of salt around the chain that's nailed to the floor. He instructs Cora to wear it on her leg, but she refuses. She starts getting doubtful about the ritual, and wonders if Abel is going to do anything harmful to her. However, Abel reassures her that he has been in this process before, so she must either trust him or not because this part is the most physically demanding. She eventually gives in and allows him to restrain her. Then she asks about the next steps, so Abel guides her to remain in the circle, repeat everything that he recites with him, and stand at all times. After this, Abel starts reciting some spells while Cora repeats them. The whole day passes by and it's almost nighttime now, yet Abel is still reciting. Eventually, Cora gets frustrated and becomes tired of standing all day because nothing has happened. She begs Abel to stop because she wants to end it, but Abel continues to recite, and eventually, this stage of the ritual shows some results. He stops reciting and sees an unconscious Cora floating in the middle of the room. He runs towards Cora as she falls down and checks up on her. After a few moments, Cora gains consciousness and starts questioning him frightfully about what just happened. She explains to him that she felt some strong energy in her chest. Now, she fully starts to believe in Abel and gets excited to hold her son again. Then, they move to the third step of the ritual, which is the invitation. In the morning, they sit together in the salt circle on the floor. Abel chants some spells, while Cora slowly lights up a candle. She pours the melted candle wax onto the floor and places the candle on top of it. Then, she starts changing alongside Abel. Suddenly, the morning sun's light turns into a dark night. Cora starts to hear eerie voices and screams of people in her head. She realizes that they have made a connection with the damned and it can be dangerous for the living. Soon after, a strong wind blows in the room and blows out the candle, and the scene shifts back to the present. We see Cora in police custody being interrogated by Allison. Cora starts freaking out and keeps repeating something about needing to return somewhere. Allison tries to calm her down and comfort her, but Cora stresses that Allison doesn't understand the gravity of the situation. The scene shifts back to the past, the day after the invitation step. Cora hears a knock on the door and realizes that it's her ex-boyfriend, Wyatt. Cora reminds Wyatt that he can't come 100 yards near her, so he needs to leave because she doesn't have any money or... Suddenly, Abel enters the scene and Wyatt assumes that either he is Cora's daddy, or they are having an intimate relationship. However, Cora asks him to go away as it's none of his business, otherwise she is going to call the cops on him. At first, Wyatt pretends to leave, but immediately pushes Cora and punches Abel in his guts, dropping him on the floor. Then, he steals some money from Abel's wallet while Cora grabs a bat to scare him off. Seeing this, Wyatt immediately leaves with Abel's money and insults Cora on his way out. He calls Cora a bad mother and makes fun of her for dating Abel because he also lost his daughter. He thinks they're a good match since they both did a terrible job at raising a child. After Wyatt heads off, Cora and Abel go back inside to take a break. Cora apologizes to Abel for the inconvenience, but Abel assures her that it wasn't her fault, so there's no need for apologies. He then questions her again if she's still ready for the next step, even after what just happened. Cora gets extremely serious and mentions that Wyatt is responsible for completely ruining her life, so she is not letting him take this opportunity away from her. Then, Abel discloses that the next step is going to be very unbearable as it is called grief. However, the brave and hopeful mother does not back down and chooses to move forward. So, the next stage begins with Abel and Cora sitting in a circle again. They light up a candle and start chanting spells. After some time, they start hearing water drops, so Cora looks up and some water drops on her forehead. She looks back down at Abel but sees herself on the day when Noah went missing 7 years ago. She sees Noah emerging from the shadows, with a demonic entity standing behind him. Noah approaches Cora but she doesn't listen to him due to being high on... After this, Noah wears his school bag and heads out. The current Cora chases him and sees Noah running away from the house. While chasing Noah, she screams at a neighbor to stop him, but she remains still. Then, Cora rushes to the corner of the street after her son, but finds nobody there. She turns around and finds herself in a public park where Noah is sitting alone on a ride as an old man watches from behind. The old man kidnaps Noah while Cora helplessly watches her son being taken away and cries with grief. At the same time, the same demonic entity stands behind Cora. After some time, Cora finds herself in the kidnapper's house. She hears some squeaking noises from the bathroom and enters it. Suddenly, the demon passes by her while she witnesses Noah lying in the bathtub as the kidnapper preys on him. She tries to intervene, but the demon grabs her from behind and covers her mouth to shush her. He reminds her of the rules that if she interferes, then this might be the last memory of her son. Then, the demon walks back into the shadows as the kidnapper takes away Noah's life. After this, Cora wakes up and we go back to the present. Cora explains this vision to Allison, who is having a hard time believing her younger sister. After all, Cora has a history of making bad choices and using all sorts of known to man. Cora tries to convince her that she isn't on drugs. However, Allison gets frustrated with Cora's messed up life. Cora mocks her, apologizing for being a disappointment because she couldn't reach the standards that her older sister set for her. After hearing this, Allison questions Cora why she didn't call her when this incident happened. Cora admits to thinking that Allison wouldn't have believed her and could not have brought Noah back home to her. This answer deeply hurts Allison's feelings, so she goes to the washroom and throws a tantrum. She kicks the dustbin and starts crying on the floor. Suddenly, Deputy Simmons arrives in the washroom and informs her she found something. She shows Allison a file and reveals that Cora was indeed telling the truth about Abel's daughter being alive. Back in the past, the next stage of the ritual called parturition begins. Abel and Cora discuss the current step while they watch over a small goat. Cora grows more anxious and excited to finish the ritual and finally meet her son. But Abel reminds her that the ritual is barter and not a gift, so she needs to stay strong and fearless. He advises her to remain in the circle because the demon is going to reveal himself to them. They initiate the ritual and this time, they chain Abel. They start chanting the same spells again and start drawing symbols around the circle. They keep chanting till night. Then Abel finally stops, inviting the demon to show itself. They both look at each other in silence, until Abel starts trembling on the floor. Cora gets petrified, but eventually Abel stops trembling and starts laughing. He gets up quickly and starts vomiting. This horrifies Cora, so she slowly moves out of the boundaries of the circle. Then, Abel looks at Cora and coughs blood on her face, so she runs off leaving the circle while we see a demonic hand emerging out of Abel's mouth. Cora runs outside of her house and cries on the porch in fear. A few moments later, she hears nothing from Abel, so she re-enters her house. She finds Abel lying unconscious on the floor, so she decides to check on him. But suddenly, he wakes up. He crawls towards Cora, telling her she's responsible for what's happening, because he warned her not to leave the circle. He tries to touch Cora's face, but gets dragged away into the living room. After some time, Cora gathers the courage to get up, and slowly walks towards the living room to see where Abel went. It is revealed that the demon has successfully been invited to this world by them, and he emerges from behind and calls Cora. Cora answers him, but does not turn around out of pure fear. The demon then asks her if she still wishes to see her boy, and manipulates her into doing his dark bidding. Cora obeys out of fear and assures him that she will do anything, but she doesn't know what to do now that she's alone. The demon then commands her to finish the ritual, and then she can have her son back, untouched and unharmed. After this, the demon leaves and Cora gets to work. She looks into Abel's ritual book, and discovers that the next step, which is to bring in an animal to for the demon. The next morning, she drags a goat and puts it in the living room for the demon. She closes the door and hears the demon's heavy breathing. Suddenly, the evil entity emerges, ripping apart the goat and eating it. At night, Cora draws more symbols on the floor and the demon finally tells her to come forth. He orders her to step into the circle, and as soon as she takes one step, she gets teleported to an open field where she meets Abel again. Abel informs her that this is the end, the payment to be made. He takes her to the middle of the field where we see a big red table. Cora questions this step, but he doesn't answer and asks for the plate at Cora's end. She hands him the plate and he places 3 pieces of goat meat on it. He tells her that 1 piece is for flesh, the second is for blood, and the third piece is for bone. Cora becomes puzzled and questions the purpose of this act. He clarifies to her that she has to eat the 3 pieces of meat so that Noah's flesh, blood, and bone can be made whole. At first, she is hesitant to do so, but the determination to get her son back takes over, so she decides to do it. She can hardly chew and swallow the pieces of meat. Then, Abel pours for her in a glass and urges her to drink it. However, Cora gets frustrated at this point and demands to see her son. Abel then tells her that he had to do this as well, and this is the last stage of the ritual. If she drinks it, the ritual will be over, and Noah will be alive in the flesh. Cora hesitates to do it, so he forces her to drink. After a little convincing, Cora decides to drink it, but she doesn't drink the whole glass and stops midway. This is when Abel becomes infuriated. He reveals to Cora that he was looking for a body that he could demon so he could possess it. That way, Abel's ritual would have been completed. He reveals that he was using Cora all this time to reunite with his daughter, but it is impossible now because his life has been taken. Then, he yells at Cora for robbing his chance of a reunion with his daughter. He yells at her to drink the blood, but she rejects his instructions and throws the cup on the floor. After this, Abel screams in agony while Cora returns back in her house, standing in the circle. Suddenly, she hears footsteps and realizes that it's the demon approaching her. The demon corners her and reminds Cora that she owes him a body. He manipulates her again by bringing in Noah. He blackmails her, stating that if she doesn't bring a vessel for him, then he is going to her Noah until the end of time. After seeing her son, Cora dreadfully agrees to procure a body for him without playing tricks. Now, out of desperation, Cora turns towards her dirty ex-boyfriend and calls him. She tells Wyatt to come to her house and bring some. Later at night, Wyatt arrives at her house. He sneaks in with the and looks around for Cora. He finds her sitting on the stairs and tells her he brought the she asked for. However, Cora looks miserable, and when he asks her about what's going on, the demon appears from behind and grabs Wyatt's head. However, the demon stops midway, angrily and telling Cora that this vessel is tainted and unclean, so he cannot take over it. Now, Cora is out of luck and out of options, so she tries to run away and save herself. The demon follows her to the kitchen, but she finds the salt and throws it on him to keep him away. Then, she runs into the living room, pours salt in front of the door, and locks herself in the room. She hears the demon approaching the room and starts banging on the door. Cora screams and the demon continues to bang on the door till it breaks wide open. After the door opens, Cora looks at the bottom and finds a bleeding Wyatt, deceased on the floor. It seems like the demon had been using Wyatt's to break the door but failed, so he left. Cora begins to cry at this sight and quickly calls 911 for help. This is the same 911 call from the start of the movie. Now, back in the present, Cora takes a shower and cleans off all the blood on her. Meanwhile, Allison inquires from Simmons if her urine sample is clean. Simmons mentions that Cora is clean and hadn't taken any. Then, Allison asks about Wyatt's whereabouts, but Simmons reveals that Wyatt's parole officer mentioned him being missing for weeks. They wonder if Cora took Wyatt's life, but they didn't find him in the house. After her shower, Allison takes Cora to a holding cell where she discloses that they won't be able to find Wyatt's body, because the demon took it. Allison informs Cora that she is going to leave her there for some time, while she investigates further into her case. As soon as Allison leaves her in the cell, she pleads not to be left alone, otherwise the demon will come. Cora screams for help, while Allison visits her house once again for clues. Meanwhile, Cora hears the demon calling her inside the cell. He tells her that it's time for his payment, because he held his side of the bargain. In the meantime, Allison hears a noise upstairs in Noah's room and checks it out. Cora lets the demon possess her after realizing her son's alive. Meanwhile, Allison finds Noah standing in his closet, alive and wearing only one shoe. Suddenly, Allison realizes that Cora was right all along about everything, and the movie ends here.